Hello. Um, this is meant to be a free flow video where I talk a bit about mindfulness, meditation, loving kindness, the why and the how of all of these practices. Um, I've been meditating for the past 6 years, and I've had a few insights that I'm hoping to help you along your meditation journey, or if you just want to get started, give you some pointers in the map for this whole pretty difficult process to get into initially. Um, I also have experience studying cognitive science, so I'll bring a bit of neuroscience in this conversation as well, which I think is really useful. So I think kind of combining the withinness of meditation, the qualitative experience of it, with the objectivity of STEM based subjects really helps in understanding why we should meditate and also how. Um, so yeah, I think the first thing that we should discuss is a few definitions because most people don't really know what mindfulness means or meditation or loving kindness, for example. Um, so really, meditation is when you kind of sit down and you can have your eyes open or closed, and actually you don't even have to sit down. You could be walking for this. There's walking meditations, but the point is you are. And by the way, there is a pretty big lack of consensus on the definition of meditation in scientific literature. So this is my attempt at defining it. You have a specific goal in mind, so you might be trying to cultivate concentration or cultivate your understanding of some theological concepts, or just even spread your self-compassion. The point is you're kind of pursuing a certain goal with meditation. And with mindfulness meditation, you're pursuing the goal to be present, and to be aware and to be focused. There's this idea of one pointedness. So with one pointedness, you're trying to stay focused on just one thing. So if you think about the way that we tend to enjoy our entertainment nowadays, so we're sort of watching our YouTube while we're eating, and we might even have the TV on in the background, so we might be watching a show at the same time. So all of these things create multiple different inputs at the same time, and we're kind of like paying attention to all, if we can, really. Oftentimes we're sleeping while all of them are happening. But the point is, with one pointedness, you're trying to focus on just one singular thing, and as different stimuli come into your awareness, you're sort of like not really pushing them away, acknowledging them, but saying thank you. But I'm actually gonna stay with this, my breath, or whatever it is you're trying to stay with. With loving kindness, I like to sort of compare loving kindness to prayer a little bit, even though they're kind of different. But the point of loving kindness is to really generate and create feelings of love for yourself, for others, for well everything in the world around you. It's a beautiful practice. But to be able to do loving kindness, you have to be able to sit for a second. You have to be grounded. So there are certain steps along your meditation practice that you don't have to take, but it helps if you take them. And then if we actually look at the traditional Buddhist practices, you have Vipassana and Samadhi, and Samadhi is the sort of, and this is just my rough understanding and interpretation of them. So feel free to disagree with me in the comments. But Samadhi is the concentration or mindfulness aspect of it. You have to be able to sit down and focus. And then Vipassana is the understanding of the Dhamma, of the Buddhist sort of theological and philosophical concepts. So this is an insight meditation, and you can practice vipassana or insight meditations with pretty much anything. You could meditate on neurological structures to try and understand them, to try and deepen your knowledge of these subjects. So obviously, traditional vipassana is definitely tied to Buddhist concepts and Buddhist thinking, but that isn't to say that you can't practice insight meditation with the goal of having insight in different subjects or areas. And so then the question is, humans are pretty stingy. We're stingy because there's so many things we can do in our time. There's so many things pulling for our attention. And so we really have to have a strong why as to why we should start a certain practice. Um, we need to have a strong idea that this will give us good returns, that it's worthwhile for our time. And so let me kind of touch on why we should meditate, why investing time in meditation is, well, really one of the best things that you can do in your life, in my opinion, in my subjective opinion. So as you go through life, you will find yourself sometimes in cyclical patterns. You feel like you've already been here. You feel like everything is just going around in a loop. oftentimes this loop actually tends to be negative, because if it's positive, you don't really necessarily want to change it. You're actually just appreciating it. And meditation can help with that as well. It can teach you how to appreciate it more mindfully. But you find yourself in a loop. You find yourself just kind of in this cycle that you want to get out of, but you don't really know how to get out of. It might be arguments with your partner. It might be difficulties at work. It might be lack of feeling fulfilled, or just lack of self-love. Um, and so what's actually happening there is you're creating these neural pathways, these neural highways. So because we're stingy, the brain knows how to conserve energy, and it kind of creates this path that you've already walked so many times that you just kind of speed through. So the way that you can visualize this is, if you think you have to get from point A to point B, where point B is your friend's home, and you have to pass through a field, you will normally take the path you've already taken hundreds of times because it's easiest. It's not necessarily the quickest path or the nicest path, the nicest walk. So you might be walking along sort of garbage and just ugly buildings, when you could have taken a path through nature to reach the same place. And obviously, you can imagine that the path of nature just feels better. It's just a bit nicer. And so, how do we reach these paths? Why do we have these difficult paths if they're not serving us in the first place? And the answer to that is just because as we grow up, um, it's pretty hard to filter out what we want and what we don't want from life. And especially as we grow up in different households with different experiences of the culture and country that we come from, the high school that we went to, and so on and so forth, you integrate certain limiting beliefs and limiting habits as things that you have to do, as things that you actually identify yourself with. I am that person. I am not smart enough to answer in class, or I am not attractive enough to be able to get that partner. You just integrate these ways of thinking and these pathways. And so you find yourself in these cycles. And there's also an idea where, well, these negative feelings, actually, they need your awareness to survive. They need your awareness to survive, because the moment you sort of direct your awareness to something else, they die. And we become addicted to them. We become addicted to the identity that we build, even around negativity. Even though we don't feel that it serves us, even though we don't feel that we want this, we're actually addicted to the complaining that we don't want it. And it's very difficult to break out of it. But, well, I don't think we have any other options than to break out of it. So, what we need to kind of understand here is, and I keep looking at my notes because I've taken some notes of what I want to go through, even though the conversation is quite free flow, is this quote from Carl Jung. So actually, and I don't want to paraphrase it. So, we cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. So if you feel anxious, or if you feel like you're ugly, or if you feel like you're not smart, if you feel all of these negative things, you can't just shun them away and hope that you will change. And there is a moment of acceptance that actually has to be sort of paired with compassion and with self-love. There's a moment of, it's okay, I'm here. It's okay, I feel this way. It's all right that I'm anxious. It's all right that I feel that I'm ugly. It's all right that I feel these things right now. It is genuinely all right that I feel these things. It's okay that I'm here. If a friend filled with anxiety came to you, you wouldn't push them away and try to ignore them, try to like move away from them. No, you would give them a hug. You would give them a hug. You would try to hear them out. You would try to show them love. And this is exactly what we should sort of strive to do with ourselves, with our own emotions, with our own feelings. And that kind of helps you break the cycle. That helps you break the cycle. That helps you reach the points that you want to reach. And so why do we want to do this? So actually what you need to do is, and why we want to practice meditation, is that as you become better and better at mindful awareness and being grounded in yourself as you are right now, not as you want to be, but as you are, the time between stimulus and reaction actually becomes larger. So you have more time to respond to certain things in the outside world and the inside world. And when you respond, then you have a choice. You have a choice to act consciously as you would like to be, as you would like to become. And the more you do that, the more you trod that new path through the beautiful nature, the easier it becomes. And actually, this habitual thinking, these neural highways that we build, get stronger and stronger, and the ones we don't want get weaker and weaker. And then you start doing these things without realizing. And you just suddenly do it without realizing, and then a few minutes later you think to yourself, holy shit, I just did that. Where I just thought to myself, I am more than enough. I just made such a big mistake, but instead of thinking to myself, fuck, I'm such a failure, I'm such a dumbass, I thought to myself, it's okay to do that. We will make mistakes. And there's so much freedom in that. There is so much liberating freedom, but to be able to do that, you first have to be conscious, and you first have to go through the difficulty of changing the path that you've trotted so many times. And that's certainly not easy. From my understanding of esotericism and spiritual alchemy, this is sort of the goal. You're trying to transmute certain negative feelings into positive ones, certain negative stimuli into positive ones, and you always have that power. You always have that strength. By the way, I've just started reading into these esoteric practices. I've just started reading Hermes Trismegistus, so my knowledge is not that strong. I'm just more of I know more of the neuroscience of meditation and the practices of meditation, both in the West and in Buddhism, than esotericism. So this is my interpretation of spiritual alchemy. Again, feel free to disagree with me in the comments. I love a good discussion. But the point then becomes that we always have this power. It's within us, and this is what meditation shows us: that we do have this power, that we do have this strength, that we can be conscious, and that we can feel loved and compassionate towards ourselves. Okay, so this is the why we should do this, but how do we do it? And this is where I think most people struggle. And the how is so personal. So I'm just going to give you some pointers now, but at the end of the day, you know what's best for you. You know better what's best for you than anyone else. So you really have to trust your intuition and your feelings and yourself. So the practices I want to share with you are the ones that let you tap into yourself to see what you actually need and what you actually want. Which is going to be different to what I want. But the first one is called The Breathing Space, and actually it's from this book, which is a fantastic book. So I'm going to put it in the description as well. I've read this book about 3 times and done the course within it about 4 times. It is really incredible, and they've actually released a second new mindfulness just dropped. They released a second one called Deeper Mindfulness. This is Mindfulness: A Practical Guide to Finding Peace in the Frantic World by Mark Williams and Danny Penman. Absolutely great book. But the point is, the practice is called the 3-minute breathing space, and it's also called the hourglass meditation. And it might come from a different tradition, but this is where I first came in contact with it. So I'm going to put it in the description below, because I think the way that Professor Mark Williams leads the practice is just so incredible that you might as well just listen to the video or his guidance. And the point is, you first clock in with your whole body. Then you focus on the breath, and then you sort of expand the awareness around the breath to encompass your emotions, your sensations in the body, so that itch or whatever, and your thoughts. And it's really quite overwhelming at first, especially if you've not checked in with your body often. So it can become quite difficult to do that initially, but it's definitely worthwhile, even if you see stuff that you don't want to see. And I've been talking during the practices that I lead, I've been talking about the 3 C's of mindfulness, and you have first of all compassion, you have curiosity, and you have comfort. You need comfort to be able to practice meditation. So I think people think of meditation initially as this idea you have to hold difficult poses, like the lotus pose. I can't hold the lotus pose, so as you can see, like I'm actually sitting on the meditation stool, like cross-legged in a way that's not as well, I guess, as you should, but there's no shoulds. I do want to build up to that, but the point is, you shouldn't start with discomfort. You should start with comfort. Comfort is so important. You should be warm. You should feel safe. You should be in an environment that makes you feel okay, at rest. And you need curiosity. So you need to be able to see what's going on without judging it. The way I like to describe it is you're like on a safari and you're just exploring what flora and fauna you see there. You're just kind of like, wow, just marveling at it. And the compassion helps a lot. You have to see it and not try to shun it away, but be like, I see you, I hear you. Thank you for being here. I honor you as you are now, not as I want you to be, not as you should be, but as you are now. And there's a lot of power in that. And so that's the 3-minute breathing space. Again, big shout out to Professor Mark Williams and Danny Penman. Just overall great book. And then that helps you ground. So that helps you touch base with yourself. And then we need to also build our mindfulness, our samadhi, our concentration. The way I like to do that was introduced to me at a Sri Chinmoy workshop slash lecture. There's a few controversies around Sri Chinmoy. There's controversies around a lot of mindfulness-based practitioners or meditation practitioners or gurus. So I still like to take the practice from it. And to be fair, some people call this box breathing. There's many other um, uh, practitioners or gurus that have shared this practice. I just happened to stumble upon it from Sri Chinmoy's workshops. Actually, not his, but one of his students. But yeah, so the point is to build that mindfulness. You basically work with the breath. So you work with the breath, and this is a fundamental object of meditation in Buddhism as well, especially in Zen Buddhism. And the way you would do this is you would breathe in for an n number of seconds, let's say 5 seconds. You would hold for 2 seconds. No matter what initial number you chose, you would always hold for two, and then breathe out for n, in our case, 5 seconds. What I like to do is I like to also hold after I've finished my breathing out, but you don't need to do that. You can choose, you can absolutely choose what you want to do. So I'll just demonstrate for now. So I'll do it for 5 seconds. So And the point is, while you do this, you will have thoughts, you will have feelings, you will have sensations, you will hear sounds around you. Your roommate might be watching a show, your mom might be cooking dinner or something, birds might be chirping outside, cars might be honking. And it's okay to notice these things, but you have to keep striving to come back to the breath. And there's no point in doing this for 30 minutes if this is your first time doing it. There's actually no point. Most of that time will be wasted. Or not wasted, but you won't be cultivating mindfulness. You'll be cultivating mindfulness for the first 3 minutes, and then you kind of be like probably away with the fairies. And that's fine as well. That's not a bad thing. But I would suggest just doing maybe 2 minutes the first time you're doing this, or 3 minutes, or 5 minutes. Just finding what's good for you and slowly building up that attention, that mindfulness muscle. Um, and before you know it, you'll be able to do 20 minutes, you'll be able to do 30 minutes, and you'll be really surprised by your innate power and your innate ability. This is what this practice will show you, that you already possess this strength within you. You're reaccessing it. And this will help you be sort of more mindful in your day and expand that time between stimulus and reaction. And actually, it doesn't become a reaction, it becomes a response. A reaction is unconscious. You just kind of like react. A response is conscious. You're like actively weighing up and down how you want to transmute those feelings into what you want to transmute them. um, and that actually helps you lead a better life. And I don't like to say better, because it's weird to kind of like create these value judgments, but you will see that you will check in with yourself, and you will feel happier, you will feel more at peace, you will feel more loving. And then there's the final practice. So we've talked about grounding, and we've talked about mindfulness, and now we're going to be talking about loving kindness. And loving kindness, again, I sometimes compare it to prayer, because it is a bit like prayer, but you don't need to conceptualize it that way. So the way that you do loving kindness is by affirming, or even visualizing, if that's easier for you, but affirming for yourself that which you want to be. And traditionally, what you would do is you would say, "May I be free and safe from suffering. Um, May I be happy and healthy. May I have ease of being." And then you would extend that to other people as well. So actually, this is again from this book, but this is also in Buddhist teachings as well. So I've also practiced this under a Buddhist monk, and the wording is pretty much the same. And then you would extend that to someone else. So you might think of someone that you really love, someone that just have so much compassion and care for, and just extend it, visualize them, and think, may you be safe and free from suffering. May you be happy and healthy. May you have ease of being. And then you could extend that to someone that you feel neutral about, and then someone that you feel difficulty with. And the book talks about not choosing the worst person in your life. Don't choose the person that you have the most difficulty with, because that just will feel horrible. Choose someone that you have a mild annoyance with initially. And then you can extend this to everyone. May all beings be free from suffering, free from pain and suffering, and so on and so forth. Loving kindness practice can also be a more direct affirmation, such as, "I am loved, I am more than enough, um, I am incredible, I am amazing, I am handsome, I am smart." And as you say these things, initially you might feel a resistance, because if you think about it, you're committing psychological suicide. You're killing the personality you have right now to transmute it to a different one that feels better, actually. But initially, that process is very difficult because you're sort of taking off your clothes and putting on new clothes. But that process of taking off your clothes is sort of like psychological suicide. It's not easy, but there's no alternative. It feels so much better to go through this process of metamorphosis that you need to do it. I mean, you don't need to do it. You get to do it. You get to reach a better mental state through this. Um, and so these are the three practices I would recommend. And realistically, you could do each one for 3 minutes. So that would be about 9 minutes a day. And if you actually commit to those 9 minutes a day for, let's say, 2 weeks, you will see the differences. But you have to do it. You have to do this. Like the rational mind would come in and be like, oh, I don't have 9 minutes this morning. I can't do this. I don't have the time today. And you have to be strong. You have to have the willpower to do it. And then if you miss a day, just do it twice the next day. Don't just start again the next day. The point is, get back to it. If you've missed a day, don't talk negatively about yourself. Be compassionate, be understanding. We have so much going on in our lives that it makes sense. But try to get back to it. And I can guarantee that you will see improvements. You will see benefits in your life. You will feel better. I think this is pretty much all I wanted to touch on. I'm going to make another video probably soon, just talking about love and fear and how fear is the illusion of lack of love. And obviously it's going to be tied to mindfulness practices and loving kindness practices that show you that actually there's an overabundance of love within you already. And it just makes life so much nicer. And it makes achieving your goals so much easier because you're not doing them out of fear of not being enough, but you're doing them out of love. You're already enough, and you're sharing your light into the world and your love into the world by doing more, but you're already enough as you are. And that's another thing I would like to share before I close out the video. You are already healed, and you are already enough, and you are already loved. It's just about tapping back into it. That's all that sort of the mindfulness practice that I've shared with you and the loving kindness that I've shared with you helps you do. I hope you find some value in the things I've shared. Please feel free to say anything in the comments below. I love discussions on these topics. And thank you. Thank you for tuning in to listen to my ramble about meditation and mindfulness. Stay safe, and may you be safe and free from suffering.